Awesome. Got some people rolling in here. Give people a couple minutes to get on and logged in for us to join us today. Awesome. That's a quorum for us. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for this CEEP webinar. My name is Joel Guthrie. I am the content marketer for Blackbaud Faith Solutions. We partnered with CEEP at their events over the past couple of years, and we love getting to partner with them throughout the years and at all their events. I'm excited because we're going to sit down with one of our customers, JD from Journey Christian Church. We're going to talk about technology in the church, how they've navigated this wild time that is 2020. JD, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. So my name is JD Eger. I'm the IT director here at Journey Christian Church. I've been with Journey for about 2.5 years. I have done IT professionally for 20 years. It's been my passion. Sometimes the ups and downs of technology are a headache, but I love every bit of it. And I have enjoyed doing it here for Journey, for sure.
That's awesome. Well, JD, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. How has 2020 been for you guys? How have you been able to navigate all of the crazy changes that have happened? Have you guys kind of found your footing yet in any way, shape, or form? Or where would you start with that conversation?
Yeah, so the start of 2020 was great for us. We were really on a roll. Attendance was about the best we've ever had in person. We always had a live stream presence. It was pretty much just an extension of our live services that we broadcasted. Obviously, with how some of the things changed, we had to shift. And it was a pretty easy shift for us technologically because we had so much of that stuff already in place. We just kind of reshaped the vision for what Journey live stream was. It became less of a live stream and more of an online campus. And our congregation just came with us, right with us. I'm the keeper of the stats at Journey, and we saw what our live attendance in person would be mirror right along with it. So for us, that type of transition was pretty easy in that regard.
That's awesome. That's so cool that you guys are able to see your congregation come with you. What has been some of the biggest challenges for you guys this year?
I mean, I think really the biggest challenge was how abruptly everything shifted. I mean, we had so much in place already, but as things shift, it's the mindset of, okay, so service doesn't happen Saturday night and Sunday for us. So how do we prepare during the week? Because the preparation that goes into the weekend service just is different. Mm-hmm. So I think just the 180 shift in the mindset was probably the biggest thing. We did pretty good. We've got a lot of good, young, talented people that are very passionate about technology that made the transition, that part, easy for us.
That's awesome. I'd like to dive into that topic right there. For some of our people attending here, those of us who our churches weren't ready for this, didn't have things in place. What are some of your advice for them to, like, where they should start? Like, this is one of the most important things here. Don't worry about this. Everyone's had to try to navigate this year.
Sure. And there are a lot of different avenues people can go through. And I've got actually a perfect example. So my dad's church is a smaller, little older demographic church. And as soon as everything kind of shifted for him, he called me and said, hey, how do we do this? Or how do we do that? Don't be afraid to use the technology. A lot of people, they see Facebook or Twitter and they see all that stuff and they want to use it for, arguing or this or that. It's such an amazing tool that the Lord has given us to be able to communicate his message to everybody else. Just don't be afraid of it. You know, you can have a live sermon on Facebook right from your phone. So just don't be afraid to try it. What's the worst that can happen? You know what I mean? So maybe you're not looking right at the camera or something like that, but that would be the biggest thing. And that's something that I like to kind of use as we go forward in a lot of these things. Just don't be afraid to use technology. We have these tools, let's use them.
Yeah, absolutely love that. I think it's don't be afraid. It's been so cool to watch all the different churches figure out in their unique way what fits them best. We're not all designed to be crazy live church, live stream, full production, multiple camera angles. And I mean, some people, it's just pre-recorded with your iPhone. Like, it's be personal and be you and be unique. And that it's been really, really fun to watch churches adjust to this time.
Yeah, and that's actually how we shifted. So I had alluded to that before, but we moved from an extension of our live stream to where, you know, it's geared as an online campus. So kind of take that for what it is. You know, if you have to adjust how you're doing things, pre-record, like you just said, pre-record and then premiere it on Facebook or YouTube or something like that. That's a perfect way to do it.
Yeah, we even in my church here in Tennessee, we actually took the time and noticed when people wanted to pay attention. So we actually moved the sermon to the front of the recording, and then worships after and announcements are at the end. That was a really fun thing that we learned. It's like, how can we get outside of the tradition of service structure that we've just all grown up in, and just like, you do a song, you do announcements, and then you do a sermon, you do communion. How can we innovate that to be more engaging and reach more people?
Yeah, and it's so funny. You start looking at the insights in Facebook and whatever technology you use, you can see where people are, maybe they're dropping off, you know, because they want to come just for the worship part or what have you. But, you know, then you see people will stay for 20 or 30, 45 minutes during the sermon. It's so interesting to dive into those data points and look at what the real interaction is. And exactly to your point, it doesn't have to be what you're used to doing. You've got carte blanche to do it really however you need to do it.
Yeah, I think everyone's congregations is given so much grace in this time. As we figured it out, I think a lot of the fear is to have it perfect, because we look at these churches that do it really, really well and have done online church really, really well, and think oh my gosh, we got thrown into this. We need all the equipment, like all that kind of stuff, but like actually innovating in whatever way reaches your people specifically. Because I mean, depending on your demographic of your church and your congregation, getting them to figure out how to get on YouTube to watch a live stream might not be the best thing. Emailing them a video link might be the better way of going. Like this, it fits your church differently.
Yeah, and it's so funny, you know, as I have gone through in my career and focused a lot on IT governance, which is basically just aligning your technology needs for what your business or your organization is. There's no one size fits all for technology. What works for a big church or a bigger church like Journey might not work for a smaller church. So use those tools that you have and that are applicable to what your setting is, for sure.
That's an absolutely great transition to that. So how would you work with some of these other churches that weren't there technologically? What are the categories? What are the steps to evaluate the technology they may need moving forward as they're starting to look at 2021? Is it their database? Is it giving? Is it what is your recommendation on how to evaluate that tech?
Well, I mean, realistically, you're going to have to align some of your funds towards technology. If it wasn't, I don't want to say important before, that might not be the right word, but the shift of technology right now is becoming more important. So determine what a budget is for you. There's a lot of free tools on the internet as well too. There's one piece of software, it's called OBS. I believe it's like Open Broadcast or something like that. A lot of video gamers use it for streaming, but there's a lot of open source resources, I guess, that can help for that. But determine what's a budget for you. Also talk to younger kids that they want their computer to run, or they're shooting video on their phone. They may be able to have a wealth of knowledge to just be able to find a way to help smaller churches be able to do this type of thing. But I mean, get in there, Google search stuff. Open source is basically a way for you to get in with very little monetary outlay up front. And a lot of these tools, they're supported by community. You have communities of people that are willing to help walk through certain things like this. But yeah, awesome. I mean, set some money aside and figure out what your budget is for it. Sure, that's a big thing.
Definitely. I'm going to answer a question we had pop up here. Robin asks, as we mentioned, Livestream, is it a platform? Is it a specific one, or is it just a feature? Robin, as we're talking about this, Livestream is just live video. You can accomplish that via a Zoom. If you got a smaller church, you can use Zoom. You can use YouTube. Facebook's got it built in. Instagram's got it built in. Depending on your church and your technical ability of your church staff, it's that one option may be better for the others. I'm a big fan of Facebook Live and YouTube Live. I think it's just easy. And most people understand how to use those platforms. So that's my advice there. Any thoughts, JD?
Yeah, agreed. So Livestream isn't necessarily I'm reading that question here, isn't necessarily a catchphrase just for YouTube. Mm-hmm. Livestream just means that you're pushing it out to the internet and people are watching it either live or pre-recorded. I had mentioned before, we actually premiere our videos on Facebook. We're right now pre-recording them because we can do things just a little bit different. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, your preacher, your pastor is up on the podium live on a Sunday and you're just holding your camera and recording him do that. You can do that on a Wednesday. That's what our schedule is. Our schedule has shifted to Wednesdays, and we're just kind of pre-recording that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, JD, how at Journey, you've been there a couple of years. You've been a huge advocate for us as Black Ball. I'll shout you out for that. But what has been the biggest approach for you guys when it comes to technology? What is your thoughts? What do you choose to do? What is it?
Sure.
What am I trying to say? Yeah.
No, I got what you're going. So when I first got hired on here, I back up a little bit. I really cut my teeth in IT about 15 years ago in the RV industry, and I had to basically pull them out of an older model of technology, right? So when I got here to Journey, what I had just done in the RV industry is what I had to do here. So the RV place I was at was 10 years behind. That put Journey 15, 20 years behind. So the biggest focus that I saw was what's going to make the most sense going forward. What does technology look like going forward? You know what? It's not having servers in a closet and some dude like me walking in there and pressing buttons as they need to be pressed. No, it's not. It's leveraging technology companies that have the resources, that have the people that are better trained in specific areas, to where, you know what we need to worry about, really? Do we just keep the internet up and the power on? Because so long as we have internet, we can get to all of our cloud-based resources. So that's probably the biggest shift that I wanted to do here at Journey, was to leverage larger partners that if something doesn't work, I just pick up the phone and call support, and then we work through how do we make on our end, how do we make this product work for what our church wants to do. And with that, churches we're not in the technology industry. That's not what the calling is. The calling is not to fight with technology. The calling is to use that technology to reach as many people as possible. And
definitely,
yeah, leveraging a large cloud-based company, man. I'm all about that as often as you can.
Yeah, I mean, you picked wisely.
Thank
No,
you.
I think that's great. I think I love that all that you said because I think it's the overwhelming part. A lot of pastors didn't get into this for tech, and tech is such a huge part, especially now, of their ministry and the way they reach their congregation and their communities. And there's no training, and then all of a sudden they got to come and figure out how to build a tech stack at their church. Like
Yep.
they're not really trained up in how to do this, and it's not their fault either. But I think there's just so many great ways to evaluate tech for your church that's fits exactly what you need and what you're trying to accomplish.
Hmm.
So JD, I, we teased this in the description of this. You guys went through the closing of your sanctuaries
Hmm.
to reopening to closing them down again. Walk me through that. How was that?
Yeah.
That sounds stressful to me, but walk me through
Yeah.
that.
Um, it was interesting. So I remember every Monday morning we would have this thing called a stand-up meeting where nobody ever stood up. We all sat down, but it was just called stand-up. So we just get in there one day and our executive pastors are talking. They said, we're just going to, we're not being forced to close, but we're going to do it. And that was about 6 weeks. I don't know about anybody else, but the days are just kind of running together.
Yeah.
So that we were out 6 to 8 weeks, and then we decided, let's open up the congregation, let's get people inside, and let's just see what that looks like. We did, and what we did was take a very measured approach. We didn't have any children's services. We basically closed that entire side of the building. We opened up the larger children's and students areas for larger seating. So in our sanctuary holds 830 people. We roped off basically half of those. Every other row was basically closed off. So if there was any overflow, we had tech in the other rooms. That's what that looked like. And then our volunteers, it was all hands on deck. We had volunteers that they weren't even serving in a particular ministry for, maybe they were in children's. They came in and they had gloves on. They were wiping everything down. We did everything we could. Unfortunately, we had somebody on our staff tested positive, and it was just, we can't come in anymore to church like that. And that was a bummer because people were energized a little bit again to get in there and hear the pastor's voice. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent. I mean, I watch YouTube all day. I have found some pastors that I never would have found anywhere else, and I'm watching them on YouTube. But it's just different when you're there, and you can feel that. So yeah, that was again. It was. I talked about shifts earlier. We had to pivot real quick, and then we tried to get back on course, and then we had to pivot again. But pivoting back to all online, it was pretty easy again, but it was a damper on spirits for sure.
Yeah, that's cool that you guys have walked through that though and navigate it. We're all trying to navigate this right now, and depending on where your church is, it's more difficult or less difficult. And it's cool that you guys were able to walk it back and figure out what you learned from that. So looking forward, have you guys decided to not meet in person for the rest of the year? Or are you guys evaluating it month by month, week by week? How do you guys continue to evaluate that?
Sure. So we don't have a specific targeted date at all. A lot of it's just going to be reevaluating, probably month to month. I guess would be the best way to describe that. But I mean, what we're going to do is take what we learned in those, I don't know, 4 weeks that we were open, and just refine our processes. Like I said, we started developing a really good routine on how we were cleaning in between services, and we opened up exit doors that we didn't have open before, just to let people, not feel crowded trying to get into or out of the building. So those were a couple things, and we learned every single week, and we started getting a much better rhythm to it. And it really helps to have people that are connected to the church, because, man, when you have volunteers that are just, they are all in, and they've, you know, getting them to serve is, man, they're chomping at the bit. They're like beating down the door. Can we come in? Can we help, please? So that's one thing that we've been, man, so blessed with, for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's, even my wife and we miss the serving part, like actually being able to like help with youth and all that kind of stuff at our church, and not be able to do that. And I agree. I am a big proponent of church online, but it's, my living room on my TV is still not the same as the sanctuary.
Yep.
I miss feeling the band. I miss like the lack of distractions. Maybe it's the ADHD that I need to that, but yeah, I totally understand with that. So how has technology played a role in this plan to reopen again? And then we can get even a little bit more nitty gritty if you want to, of what technology you're using for all your day-to-day stuff in the church.
Sure. So, well, Zoom has been huge for us. We have leveraged, a lot of what I had allocated to some hardware upgrades went right into bolstering our Zoom account. And all of our small groups are meeting on Zoom. We have weekly meetings for our church staff on Zoom. And we've really been leveraging, again, YouTube, Facebook, but mass email for sure. And that one's been huge. It's just a quick way to get everybody on page, because not everybody, what's the best way to say this? Not everybody ingests technology the same way. You know, some people like to check their email. Some people are on Facebook all day. Some people are like me. I'm a YouTube junkie. I'm on YouTube as often as I can. There are so many times where I'm working. One screen is everything that I'm working on, and another screen is just YouTube. So people ingest that different ways, and you kind of have to get a pulse of what that is. Like our youth ministry, it's Instagram. I've got an Instagram, but I don't even know how to use it. I'll get on there and I'll flip around a little bit, but that's not for me, you know. And then even younger, it's TikTok. So just kind of understanding and getting a pulse for how your congregation is going to ingest that. And Jesus actually teaches about, teaching people how to fish. Well, listen, Jesus would use technology if he were here, for sure. He would fish all day. I'm sure he'd be great on YouTube, Facebook, all that.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It's just and so much of it's free, and it's just such an awesome opportunity to reach people. And I see the same idea, like Jesus and Paul, like everyone in the Bible, they had what we had to go to the ends of the earth and beyond. Like it's instantly is amazing. So taking advantage of that. But I think like you mentioned though, evaluating your congregation and how do they like to be communicated through technology, depending on the demographic of your church. Being like, hey, we're going to post it on the Instagram. They're like, what's the Instagram? Like, they put the in front of Instagram.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to approach, especially communication tools, social media, and all those kind of things. I'm going to ask the golden question here. So how has Blackbaud been a great supporter?
I think I lost you a little bit there, but I think the question was, how has Blackbaud helped us? Is that a pretty good?
Yep. How's Blackbaud helped y'all this time? Been a good partner this time.
Sure. So we started integrating maybe about 6 months after I got here, and I alluded to it before about mass email. We don't have to manage a database in our church management software and then manage a database in MailChimp or Constant Contact, because we can just send our email right from Blackbaud. They've got this mass communication, mass email built right into it, which is perfect. Because as we're going through and updating records and making sure email addresses are correct and building out our lists, we just send emails to those lists. We've got a weekly email that goes out to all of our members, regular attenders, guests, what have you. We also have lists that our small group leaders can send just to people who are part of small group. And we're actually working through with some of the check-in systems. How are we going to be able to send email just to parents of the kids that are in our next gen ministry? So, man, for us, mass email has been probably the most routine way that we've been able to get our communications directly to our congregation. So that one was big. Awesome. The other one for sure has been our prayer wall. That was a new feature that Blackbaud rolled out, where I'm sure there's other church management software that has it, but that's something that was kind of new to me. And it's just an extension of, people would send a prayer request into a prayer team and they would pray over it. Now our entire congregation can go to our website and see some of the prayers that people have made public. And instead of having, I don't know, 20 people in a prayer team praying for it, you can have hundreds of people, thousands of people that are, want to pray for people, and they'll pray specifically for them. So one of our pastors in adult discipleship literally said, because this is going to be a game changer for us.
That's awesome. I'm just glad to hear it. And I think it's so cool to get that kind of awareness out. And there's people in your church that are prayer warriors, man. And when they want to jump in and pray over people in your church and your congregation, and giving them the opportunity to be super specific is so huge. So I'm glad y'all are loving that feature. Yeah. We're glad we put something together like that.
Yeah. Yeah, we're also kind of dabbling into some other things too. And I'm, like I said, I'm totally into technology. So whenever Blackbaud says, hey, we've got a new feature, can we get you on board to try it? Man, my hand is like always raised. Yes, please. But let me see what you guys are doing. So I love it. I enjoy every bit of it.
Yeah, we're so appreciative of you. You guys have been such a pivotal church for us as we've continued to develop and build out Blackbaud Church Management. Cool. Yeah, man. JD, thank you so much again for jumping in on this. Those of y'all listening, feel free to jump in the chat. We're going to take probably 15 minutes here and answer some questions for you guys. So don't be shy. If you want to ask questions about Livestream or Blackbaud or technology at all, JD is the all-knowing, all-powerful guy when it comes to technology. So I'm sure he'll have an answer for you. So if feel free to jump into the chat, and we'll jump into there. We got some in here right now already. We talked about Livestream. Quite a few of these are about Livestream, but the age-old question right now, is it better to live stream your service or pre-record your service? What are your thoughts? You mentioned y'all pre-record.
Yeah, so again, this is, you have to play to your strengths. I mean, do you have anybody on staff who can pre-record and edit down your video into something that can make it onto YouTube? I mean, if you don't, but you do have somebody who can hold a camera and press start and film for you, then that would be the way to go. It really, man, it's such a case by case deal, because it doesn't, what may work here for Journey might not work for everybody else. We definitely pre-record, but we have some people on the video team that they are just top notch. They are excellent. So for us, it's easy, but it might not be like that for everybody. So yeah, I see that question. What are some of the hazards or pitfalls? One of the pitfalls with that is we record on a Wednesday, and then when we open church back up, the same preacher he's preaching that same service. So there's a little bit extra work that goes into pre-recording for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think too, one thing to evaluate as well, if you're especially if you're trying to do multicam live stream of your service, does your church have the router and bandwidth capacity to push that kind of bandwidth? I've seen that be a pitfall for some churches that invest in all the gear, but they don't invest in the internet infrastructure. So they don't have the upload speeds that they need to have a smooth service.
Yeah, that's actually one thing that, man, thankfully the timing was right on that. We had just upgraded our regular cable internet service to a direct fiber circuit. Man, it was like the end of the year, beginning of the year. So we just got that part in place. So the timing was perfect on that for us.
I love having that fiber, man. That's game changer. Perfect. Do you have another question here? Do you have to have a certain number of users to have the free Facebook Live? Nope. You just need a Facebook page for your church. If you don't have one already set up, that's all you got to do. And there's just a go live feature. You can also premiere, like JD mentioned, where you upload and then set a time for it to go, and it acts like a live video and people can interact in the chat and stuff like that. But nope, it's completely free. You just have to have a Facebook page. Interesting. Any good solutions for music performers, choirs specifically, dispersed at home? Have you seen anybody use anything and try to record a choir?
Yes. So, funny story, when I got to Journey, there was a very big distinction between IT and tech. I come from the old school business IT world, servers, infrastructure, network, and then there's tech, which is cameras, recording devices. And I've learned a lot over the last few years, but not to the level of some other people. So I don't know specifically those answers, but I can poll our music and tech team and say, hey, what are you guys using? What's the equipment that you're recording with? Are you using, man, I don't even know the right term for it, but I can poll our people and I can get some answers for that specifically. Sure.
Awesome. Can we talk a little bit as to what small groups you have? JD, I can let you jump in for this first. What's kind of the breakdown structure? Is it small families, young adults? How do you guys have that broken down?
Sure. So we kind of run the gamut on that. We definitely have some young adults who meet. They took right to it. We have some of our other Bible study groups that went right to Zoom. We have care and recovery ministries that I helped set up the Zooms for. And then we have, I'm not sure how many people have heard of it, but we actually have a discipleship path called Rooted that it's a 10-week course that it's not a requirement, but man, I went through Rooted here as part of staff, and then I led a Rooted group outside of that. I loved it. But we're actually next season for it, I think fall season coming up, we're going to transition all of those Rooted small groups into Zoom. So they'll just be taking that online course basically right through Zoom. Yeah. Awesome. So, I mean, whatever groups any other church had, we probably have them, and we're doing it all online.
Yeah, definitely. We were at my church, we're also doing the same thing. We call them missional communities, which is whatever you want to call them. It's some churches, small groups, Bible studies, whatever term. But yeah, we break them down by age group, small, young families, newly married, people that live in the same general region, to some people want to study for certain topics of the Bible, kind of where they're at, that kind of stuff, which is great. I mean, it's whatever, like you said, it's whatever breakdown you want to do, wherever you see the need for community, and putting those people together. And I mean, my wife and I lead one of the missional communities, and we actually started leading the missional community like 2 weeks before everybody stopped meeting in person. So like we only met in person once as a group. So we had to go through the whole process of getting to know each other all through Zoom. And we've still only met in person once ever. But we've been a group for 6-7 months now, which has been wild. To think like we've gotten to really, really engage with these people. And it's been so cool to like the grace that people have of like getting through the awkwardness of like, oh, no, you go. No, you go. Which is so fun.
Yeah, it was funny being on the technology side. sometimes I make the mistake of telling people, yeah, oh, if you need any help, just give me a shout, give me a holler. And I've definitely gotten some church people that just, they run their own small group, or maybe they don't know how to get everything started. And for a while there at the beginning, my phone was ringing, but you know what? It's been such a blessing. You get those emails later on. They're like, thank you so much for helping me. I never could have figured it out without you. And a lot of times it's such an easy solution, but man, that brings me so much joy, assisting people with technology. There's so many people in tech that don't want to be like that. Man, I love every bit of that.
Me too. I completely agree with that. It's so cool. It's just such an awesome tool to do ministry and to reach more people. And it's why not use it? And that's something I've talked about a lot of, especially with social media and marketing. That's my background, is why not leverage all of this to reach everybody in your community when it's so easy and so much of it's free? Why not jump into that?
Yep.
Well, that was our last question there. Any other questions from y'all? If not, we can probably can call it. Cool. So just so you guys know, Joe Swimmer from CEEP put a survey link in the chat. So be sure to fill that out to give them some feedback. Let them know how much you liked us, how much you love the UT Longhorns. Give a shout out for that. Yeah. Well, JD, thank you so much for taking the time. This was a really fun conversation. I hope you guys found it valuable as we talked about the way to use technology in this wild time that we're in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And again, don't be afraid to use it. Just jump in and use it.
Amen. Cool. Awesome. All right, guys. Talk to you later.
Yep. Take care.